We usually imagine our prehistoric ancestors as nature's ultimate survival machines. And you're probably thinking, if a modern human were dropped back into that world right now, they'd become a snack for some predator in about 5 minutes. But here's the thing. You are not nearly as fragile as you think. Thanks to tens of thousands of years of evolution, you carry 4 superpowers your ancestors would have dreamed of having. Today, we're going to count down those survival advantages. And the irony is, the greatest magic trick that would help you dominate the wild has nothing to do with weapons or raw strength. It comes from one tiny habit you still do in your kitchen every single day. Number 4. The Trap Master. Our ancestors were tough hunters, no question. But their way of getting meat was unbelievably risky. If they wanted food, they often had to track an animal for miles, get close enough to strike, and sometimes face it head-on. And these weren't harmless little forest creatures. These were wild, panicked, powerful animals that could break bones in seconds. It was a life-or-death gamble. In a world with no hospitals, no surgery, and no antibiotics, one bad hit from a wild boar could end everything. A twisted ankle during a chase could be a death sentence. Every hunt meant putting your body on the line just to make it to the next meal. But your advantage isn't that you invented traps. Humans were already clever hunters long before you arrived. Your advantage is that you understand the system behind them. You don't need superhuman strength. You don't need to throw a spear like an Olympic athlete. What you have is a mental blueprint: leverage, tension, gravity, stored energy. You don't just see a branch. You see a spring. You don't just see a rock. You see a weight. You don't just see a vine. You see a trigger. So instead of relying only on speed, strength, and close-range danger, you start thinking like an engineer. You use vines, flexible branches, rocks, and simple trigger systems, not to invent trapping from scratch, but to make it more reliable. A spring snare that yanks prey off the ground, a deadfall trap that uses the weight of a heavy rock, a simple mechanism that waits silently while you do something else. Think about that. While the rest of the group risks their bodies chasing animals deep into the forest, you're building a system around the camp. And then, you go back to the cave and sleep. Physics does the hunting for you. You haven't changed nature. You've changed your relationship with it. Hunting is no longer just a test of muscle, speed, and pain. It becomes a system. And in a world where one injury can kill you, that is a superpower. Number 3. The ultimate survival battery. In the wild, there was one ghost that haunted our ancestors every single day: calories. Or more accurately, the lack of them. They lived meal to meal. Their bodies rarely had the chance to store extra energy. And when winter dragged on or the animals moved away, hunger became one of the deadliest forces on Earth. But in one specific situation, you might arrive with a strange advantage. Not strength, not speed, time, a savings account. Thanks to the abundance of the 21st century, your body may be carrying one of the most valuable survival tools nature has ever created: stored body fat, which in the modern world we usually treat as a problem. But in a world of famine, it becomes something else entirely. Yes, the same extra fat people worry about in the mirror, the same fat they try to burn off at the gym, would not make you stronger. It would not make you faster. But in a famine, it could become a survival buffer. Of course, this doesn't mean being out of shape is an advantage. In a chase, it might get you killed. But during starvation, stored fat becomes something very different: time. Because fat is concentrated energy. When hunger hits and the rest of the group begins to weaken because there's no food to be found, your body has a backup plan. It opens the reserve. It starts burning stored fat to keep your brain running, your body moving, and your temperature from crashing. That reserve might not save you forever, but it could buy you extra days. And in the wild, extra days can mean everything. You could make it through the hardest days of scarcity, powered by the burgers, pizzas, and giant sodas you consumed back in the 21st century. Number 2. The invisible medical armor. The wild is a brutal place. A place where one tiny accident can turn into a death sentence. Before antibiotics, a small scratch from a thorn or a simple cut on your hand could lead to a deadly infection: gangrene, tetanus, blood poisoning. Our ancestors had to gamble their lives against risks so small they were almost invisible. But you do enter that world with one unusual advantage: not invincibility, preparation. Your immune system has seen things your ancestors never had a chance to train for. Because of vaccines you received growing up, your body may have a better chance against certain infections, like tetanus, than someone who had never been exposed or immunized. A scratch or a small wound would still be dangerous, but your immune system might have a head start. A prehistoric hunter did not have that advantage. Still, don't get too confident. Because that advantage has a weak spot, a very modern one: your gut. Your digestive system was shaped by filtered water, clean kitchens, refrigeration, and antibiotics. It was not built for a random stream in the middle of the Stone Age. And anyone who watches survival shows knows exactly where this goes. You get thirsty, you see a clear little stream, it looks pure, cold, perfect, so you take one sip, and one sip might be enough. Parasites like Giardia or bacteria that cause dysentery could turn your own body against you. Your immune system might help you survive a wound, but your modern gut, that might be the thing that takes you down. And that is exactly when you would need your greatest survival superpower. Number 1. The science shaman. Remember at the beginning when I mentioned one tiny thing you still do in your kitchen every day? That thing is boiling water. Our ancestors were not stupid. They learned from experience, from trial and error, from stories passed down around the fire. They may have learned what worked, but you know why it worked. And in this world, that knowledge feels almost mystical. Inside your head is a knowledge vault they never had access to. And one of the most powerful ideas inside it is this: germ theory. You know that suspicious water should be boiled before you drink it. You know that an open wound should be cleaned with the cleanest water you can make, not packed with mud just because the bleeding stopped. But there's a problem. How do you boil water in a world with no metal pot, no pan, no kettle, no ceramic bowl? This is where science starts to look like magic. You don't need a metal pot, you need a principle: heat transfer. You dig a small pit in the ground, you line it with animal hide or large leaves, then you fill it with water. Next, you heat stones in the fire until they're burning hot, then you drop them directly into the water. The heat from the stones transfers into the pit, and soon the water begins to boil. With one simple technique, stone boiling, you dramatically reduce one of the biggest hidden risks in the wild: bad water. And it doesn't stop there. When someone gets hurt, you can clean the wound with boiled water. If someone breaks a bone, you know enough basic physics to use a wooden splint and keep it stable. They may not worship you, but they would notice something. People who drink your water get sick less often. Wounds cleaned your way have a better chance. Broken bones held in place may heal straighter. And in a world where survival is measured in small margins, that makes you extremely valuable. Because your greatest superpower was never strength. It was explanation. To them, it might look like magic. To you, it's just science. And that is how a modern human becomes the closest thing the Stone Age has to a science shaman. So the next time you're standing in front of the mirror after a long, exhausting day, don't be so quick to judge the person looking back at you. The weaknesses of modern life may not be weaknesses at all. They may be the price we paid for a different kind of power. Now imagine waking up tomorrow in the middle of a prehistoric forest. Just you, the trees, and whatever happens to be in your pockets or your backpack right now. So check carefully. And tell me this: what's the one thing you have on you right now that might actually help you survive? But maybe the most important thing you carry into that world isn't in your pocket at all. It might be the explanation in your head.